Melissa Fleischut from the Restaurant Association and Scott Wexler from the Restaurant and Tavern Association. Thanks so much for being here.
Thank you.
So Melissa, I want to turn to you first. Obviously, we still have a lot of restrictions on restaurants, especially in New York City. There's limits on how many people can be at a table in some cases, limits on capacity. And I think that we all understand that that's for people's safety. It's probably the right thing to do. But from a purely financial standpoint, how long can restaurants go on like this without, I guess, closing permanently?
Not much longer would be the answer I would give. We've really been pressing hard for some more stimulus money, some more relief from the federal government, really anything, PPP money, grant money, a dedicated restaurant fund, more EIDL money, anything really at this point. We know that our congressional leaders have done a really good job pushing for New York and our needs as a restaurant industry in particular. But without additional dollars, it's going to be very difficult to continue at 25% capacity or 50% capacity going forward.
I was curious, just talking about how restaurants are right now. Obviously, a lot have gone from a purely sit-down model to some have now done takeout and delivery when they've never done it before. And I think the last time you were on the show, we talked about this a little bit. I'm just curious, how has that balanced things out? Have restaurants been able to make up the difference by doing that? I'm assuming not by your face, but tell me what's been going on.
Yeah, so they're not making up the difference at this point, but I think hopefully most of them have figured out delivery and takeout. If they haven't, I would strongly encourage them to do so as soon as possible because it's just going to be an important part of the business going forward. And I think, unfortunately, what we're seeing is, they're just not back to their pre-COVID sales levels, even at 50% with outdoor dining, with takeout and delivery, with everything firing on all cylinders. They're still below last year's numbers on sales. And it depends a lot on the type of restaurant as to how much below you are.
Scott, I want to turn to you. The other side of the coin for this is compliance. The governor has said that some establishments have had a real problem with compliance, especially in New York City. He's formed a task force to shut down some restaurants and bars that just haven't been following the rules. Right here in Albany, we had one that supposedly had 70 people inside without masks and no social distancing. And I'm just wondering, it's been months since the pandemic started. How do we get people to understand that they have to follow the rules, not only just to keep their restaurants and bars open, but to keep the public safe, I guess?
Well, let's be clear, Dan. I think the governor and the state liquor authority have acknowledged it. Overwhelmingly, the hospitality industry, our employees and our customers have been compliant with the rules and regulations that have been imposed. When the governor releases now daily statistics of compliance, typically it's less than 1% of the establishments that have been visited by the task force or the state police or local police are found not to be in compliance. So the fact that 99% on a typical day are compliant, I'm actually quite proud of the entire community for how they're doing. What I can't figure out is why that 1% still doesn't get the message. But that 1% is not just in the restaurant and tavern industry. A lot of it are our customers. I'm sure you're aware of the incident that happened out in West Seneca, New York, recently, where a patron in an establishment, an 80-year-old man who saw another patron, another older gentleman wearing without a mask, approached him, apparently reasonably politely, asked him to put the mask back on. That guy was pushed down, hit his head on the ground, and passed away recently. Mm-hmm. So I think there's a small percentage of the state's citizenry that still doesn't get it. When they're in our bars and restaurants, we're going to ask them to comply. And when they're in other establishments, those establishments have the same challenges that we do.
So just taking both sides of the coin of enforcement and compliance and then the finances that I asked you about, Melissa. I'll go to you first. What more could the state be doing to help restaurants right now? We talked about the federal government a little bit with the stimulus. Is there anything that the state could be doing to help restaurants get through this?
Well, I think there's still a lot of uncertainty as to how long they're going to be at 50%. We have restaurants across the state. So there's restaurants in the North Country where the infection rate has been extremely low who are kind of wondering, well, what about us? Could we go to maybe 75% capacity up here and maybe we would be okay? And then, you deal with different issues like rent in New York City.
Right.
Although the eviction a moratorium has been great, long term, they're never going to be able to get back those lost sales to get those dollars to pay their landlords. And we understand the landlords are between a rock and a hard place too. They have mortgages that they have to pay back to the banks. So there really needs to be, and I'm not quite sure if it needs to be a state solution or a federal solution, but a long-term solution to the rent issue would be very helpful. And then again, I go back to more federal dollars. Congress has really given us an 8-week solution to what looks like it's going to be a year-long problem.
Scott, last word to you. Obviously, the weather is getting colder. Restaurants and bars could, in the summer and in the spring and now in the fall a little bit, have people outside. Well, not in the spring. But now they're going to have to put people inside or come up with other solutions. What's the alternative here? Can restaurants get through this without being able to put people outside?
Well, the fact of the matter is, as Melissa said earlier, it's going to be a real struggle for this industry. The state could extend the cocktails to go law. That's been very helpful. It's been a small help, but every little piece helps.
I like that law.
The other things that Melissa mentioned. But what's really key is the work that Melissa and the National Restaurant Association have been doing on the Federal Restaurants Act, because there's no way that this industry or any industry can survive a year with 25 to 50% of their sales. The feds bailed out the airline industry, the cruise industry, and they're talking about it again. They have to help the small independent restaurant industry. And if they provide that help, then the state will be able to provide the guidance and the oversight to allow us to come back and recover in a proper way.
All right, well, it's something that we are watching very closely here. Scott Wexler from the Restaurant and Tavern Association and Melissa Fleischute from the State Restaurant Association. Thank you both so much for being here.